welcome to the Staunch Talk Show. Igama Princess Mahogo, Jakhukati Timayaha, Zaleni, Domshan Obupeti Zikali. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here and to support us. And today I have quite a very special guest. She is a trailblazer, and her title is so difficult and long for me. She is going to say it herself. But I am so honored to have Zukiswa Phillips with us on the show, and she's joining us to talk a bit more about financial planning and analysis. Suki, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So may you please introduce your title to the masses?
So I'm Managing Executive for Financial Planning and Analysis and Data Governance and Analytics at Vodacom, South Africa.
In about month end, a million bank account as a salary.
Wow, I wish.
Thank you so much for being here. So, for someone who is hearing this term for the very first time, could you please explain what financial planning and analysis is?
Okay. So, I think basically in terms of finance has different structures. So, you're going to have a financial operations piece, and then financial analysis and financial planning and analytics or analysis really relates to putting together. So I always say the simplest way I do it is say I'm the one who puts the story together. So business sells, what is business selling? And then once they've sold what they've sold, we need to be able to account for it. And when we account for it, we need to be able to account for it based on what the budget was saying, what did we actually expect, what did we give them as targets. So my job is not only to make sure that the budgets are set, the forecasts are set, but also is to be able to tell the story when we deviate from those targets and budgets. So my team and my responsibility really lies with planning, which is your budgeting and forecasting and long-range planning. So we do 5-year long-range planning. And then it also has to do with reporting. So month-end reporting will sit in the same space where we put together the reports, the decks in terms of what has happened for the month, and then also the reporting for your budget packs, for board packs. So all of it sits within my ambit, and then be able to then tell the story. How do I look at what our strategy is? How do I marry those together to be able to give you a budget? So there's a joke that says, budget eats strategy for lunch, because as you can have the grandest of ideas of what you want to do, but the rubber hits the road when you're now putting together budgets. So I have to bring that together. What is our strategy saying? What's our budget saying? What's our long-term and our long-range planning? And then I'll be able to then put it together as a story. So I always say I'm a storyteller. If we are missing, I need to be able to say why we are missing. If we're doing better, I need to be able to say why we're actually doing better, so that my executive team understand how the business is doing, but also I become the challenger. If things are not working out as we want them to, or we want to challenge them to do more, that's my piece as well, because I get to see the numbers. I get to see when we can see that there's drama or problems that are coming, so that we're able to have then the right conversations of how we mitigate some of the risks that we might be seeing, and also how to take advantage of any opportunities that we see, like the liquidity in the market right now. How do we then, as an executive team, how does the business take advantage of that? What deals do we have in the market that actually support the fact that we've got some improvement in our macros?
I think that it's safe to say that you are probably not the best friends with the marketing team, because you are the stumbling block. Hi guys, you are dreaming too much now. Let's cut here.
Actually, I'm quite a hard. I mean, when people hear Zuki and budgets are synonymous, and yes, I am quite hard in terms of how we spend the money, how we invest, what do we invest in. So it's not just marketing, I can put it that way. I think the whole business have to understand, because we have the benefit of seeing it all. It's very easy for us then to be able to say, guys, based on what we can see, these are the options that we have. And then we all work together to see how we close the gaps using those options that are put on the table. So I would say it's marketing, yes, but actually the business.
It's like when
It's
God
like,
say, here's
yeah.
Zuki's name, oh, Gosiam, here she comes.
Yeah.
But I think that it's quite important then to have great communication lines so that people understand why you have to say no even to something that they feel is important, because you also have the best interest at heart for the business.
Correct.
Because then if you just and now the
Then-
business is making a loss instead of making
Correct.
a profit, then also you're not doing your job well.
Exactly, and then that is really my role, is to support my FD. So I'm almost like, I always joke and say I'm her purse. When I introduce myself and I say, introduce my FD, and I say I'm her purse, because actually as the purse, it means that a lot of decisions I have to support her. I have to make sure that she sees all the different things through the lens that we provide for her. So there is no option for us to say, oh, we've missed the numbers. Why? We're like, oh. So we always say that revenue is an ambition, but costs are guaranteed, like you know your costs. So in actual fact, the things that you have control over is costs. So you can't control revenue. You can have an ambition to make $1 billion, but a lot of things are out of your own purview to be able to make that $1 billion. But if you said you want to spend 100 million, it is in your best interest to make sure that, am I spending this 100 million the right way? Or actually, instead of spending the 100 million, because my revenue is not coming, do I then take this 100 million and see what are the things that I can actually put aside for now while there's pressure? So now to have pressure coming from revenue, you have pressure from costs, the investor's not going to be happy because you are not delivering the revenue, but you're overspending on costs. So it's critical that these two work together, but the thing that we have control over is our costs. So I'm able to then say, listen, the 100 million that I gave you yesterday, based on where we are right now, I might need to cut it to 80 million. And sometimes it's a shortcut where I'm saying, where I'm saying we're cutting 20 million, but let's see how things go. As revenue improves, guess what? I show up back with your 20 million. But where revenue doesn't improve, there's a risk that if it gets worse, I might come back and say, actually, can we do more? Can we do more? Because ultimately, for the shareholder, we must still be able to add value, to create value for the business. And most of the times when you're telling the story of why revenue is under pressure, a lot of it in South Africa in particular is related to the macros. It's been a tough, I don't know how many years, I've even lost count. The country came from COVID, then we went straight into load shedding. So we're only just now starting to almost get our heads, probably just eyes above the water, with inflation is starting to, to taper down. Interest rates have started going down. So your macros are starting to improve, trickling, but it's not enough for you to then open the doors and say, okay, it's happening. Once the revenue starts building, then we can come back and say, actually, what do we want to invest in? What do we want to spend? But also to start changing. I always challenge the team and I say, what do you do in your own home when things change? If something, God forbid, somebody loses their job, you can't continue business as usual, because now you're coming from your partner. There was a 2-income household, let's say. Somebody loses their job, you end up with 1 income. There is absolutely no way, unless you've got, let me not say no way, but unless you've got a nice savings nest somewhere. Even the savings nest, you have to change things, because now you must manage based on the little share that you have. And it may be short term, but in that short term, do something that makes sure that things don't get worse. And also your savings are there to help, yes, but they're not there to help for you to continue to live as if you still have to, because then you start depleting those savings, which were supposed to be your safety net. So you must change your behaviors. Do you now start looking, say, we used to go out every Friday, maybe we cut it down to twice a month as opposed to every Friday. That's a saving. You know how much you're spending. So we, unlike a lot of households, as a business, you have no choice but to budget. Some households don't budget. I mean, in my household, we budget. We've been budgeting forever since I got married. So we know, you know exactly, and it makes it easy for you to then, when you now need to cut, you can go back and say, how much do I spend on groceries? What do we buy? Actually, if I was spending 5,000 rands a month on everything that I need for my house, can we make do with spending 3,500, 4,000? That's 1,000 that you've managed to save. And you literally go line by line. That's why you have a budget. And that's why I always suggest, when I speak to friends, when I speak to young and up and coming, I always say, you need to have a budget. And make sure you avoid having a miscellaneous line in your budget, because what then happens is we do have a budget and then we have this line, and even in companies we do this line that I hate with a passion, miscellaneous costs. That's where everybody then dumps everything that you,
and then you end up going over budget.
You end up going over budget, but also then you don't know, you can you assume that everything that's in the miscellaneous can be cut, because if you could, then it's very easy, because you can say, okay, everything here must go. But most of the times you're putting things in miscellaneous not because they're not important, but because maybe you haven't created a line for it or something like that. But when it comes to here, we know exactly where we sit. Everybody gets a budget. If I come back to you and say, that budget for marketing that I gave you, please can we see how we can be creative, do things differently. And also it forces people to also to just change how they think in terms of how they spend money. Because you want to do something, you still can do it, but maybe you could do it differently.
Yeah.
So that's really the mindset that we continue to build.
Discipline is what I took away from what you are saying. Basically, if you have discipline and you are willing to stick to what you set your goals to be, which it should be reasonable goals, then you can achieve what you want. Basically, if, for example, you lost a job, as you made an example. I think that for most people, one thing that I've noticed, especially in the Black community, not to discriminate against anyone, we have the misconception that, because I also grew up with that misconception, that financial planning is for people that are rich or wealthy. Because where am I supposed to, I touch up like 200 to save, or that 500, because already the money that's coming in is way too little. So people will feel like, mostly Black households, they'll feel like, I don't even have money to save from the one that's coming in, because before it even gets here, there's already way too much to do that is even over the amount that I'm receiving. So what would your advice be to those households, and to someone maybe who has a business that they're saying, Zuki, I have a business, I keep running into financial trouble. What could I be doing wrong?
I think it starts with, again, if you budget. So I'll go to a business. If you are starting a business and you are a startup, I always question the reason why people want to be in offices. I need to be in this office, I need to have a secretary and this and this. There's actually ways of being able to run a business and having virtual help, because a virtual PA or secretary is not going to cost you the same as I would cost you if I'm a PA, that you need to pay for my salary, but you also need to pay for my pension and the virtual ones. So I would suggest that as you're starting up, if you can work from home, and I know that sometimes you could be starting up and the option for you to work from home isn't there, then look at options where you can go and rent a space. Is it Regis, the different, I think WeWork, I don't know if WeWork still is available. I know they had some problems, but find cheap options. So let's assume that you have a business now, you have an office in a nice place, wherever, and you are honestly constantly getting into trouble every month. Go and sit down and actually look at those lines. What am I paying for my office space? What am I paying for things that you can actually, just by making a small change, it can give you instant help in terms of your finances. So if you have an office where you are paying a whole space where there's a very few of you, then start seeing how do you renegotiate the square meterage cost within where you are. If you can't renegotiate, look at other options. Can I actually go to these office parks that where you can literally rent a desk, or sometimes where you are that person that you have a home where you live, set up for yourself an office where you can sit and you make sure that you can have your meetings, and then where you have meetings that you need to do face to face, you have places like that where you can actually book a meeting room. It's one day, you go in, you sit, and you make sure that you are there for the whole day. Still cheaper than you wanting to have an office that also has a boardroom for you to have your client meetings. So there's creative ways. I mean, there's many people that have businesses and they sit in Starbucks. Depending on what your business is, you can sit in Starbucks and actually work and be having coffee if you drink coffee, but it's cheap. It's not even just cheap, it's free, right? You sit there, their Wi-Fi is there for you. All you just need to do is just be getting a drink of coffee or whatever. Still much cheaper than you getting rental space. And then as things change, you then start changing as well. But also when things change, don't change too quickly. Where you now thinking, oh, I'm doing very well, I've got a lot of clients, let me go and find an office incentive. No, there's no need. If you were able to service your clients from a Starbucks or from your office at home, start thinking differently only when you start really seeing that you can stand by yourself and be able to put a nice nest for your business and start investing back into the business before you start saying, oh, let me go into the office and spoil. Not even spoil yourself, but going into big offices, nice glitzy office. For what? So that's one. But in terms of individuals, and you're right, unfortunately we think saving starts when you have a lot of money. As I said to you, I started saving with my husband when we got married. I'm married this year. This year will be 20 years. So I started saving since 2015. When we got married, we sat down and we said, okay, we're gonna start doing this. We put together a spreadsheet. It's not just saving, actually budgeting. I meant budgeting, apologies. What happens when you budget is you know what the problems are. It's almost like when we don't budget, we're gonna bury our heads in the sand. And when you bury your head in the sand, that's where you fall into the trap of, I run out of money, then I'm gonna go to a mashonisa to get a little bit of help for the month. But the reality is, if you get 5,000 rands a month and your outgoing is 7,000 rands a month, that 2,000, if you go and get it from a mashonisa, the following month is not a 7,000 anymore, because those guys are charging you interest for days. So now you enter month 2, your 7,000 that you need is actually now crazy 7,500, because they do charge quite a bit. And then it becomes a hole that you keep on digging for yourself. So I would say, especially for the young, your young adults that are starting to work, put together a budget and also don't rush leaving home. If you don't have to leave your home,
thank you for raising that point.
Don't rush leaving home. Set yourself up so that you're at a place where you're comfortable. The money that you're making, put it aside. Don't eat it. So if you're making 5,000 rands, staying at home, where rent you don't need to pay, you're helping with groceries or whatever.
And then
this transfer money, be very clear that whatever happens, what I'm able to save, I'm going to be disciplined and put it aside. So if you're saving 1,000 and you want to buy a car, because a car is an investment. I know we always call it a liability. I always say, for me, yes, I get it that it depreciates, but actually it's an investment in that I need to get to somewhere. It takes me to the job that gives me money. So every time, and it makes my life a bit easier. Instead of getting on a taxi, I can get in my car, go to work. I don't need to be rushing to leave work where there's a project happening, I need to be at work for longer. Then there's a text, So I look at it differently. I'm being controversial, but I always say, yes, it depreciates, but actually take care of your car. And it's a car that you use, that's what you need, that's part of what you need for you to go from point A to point B. And to have that independence and not have to worry about a taxi strike, then you're calling, then you're always in a rush, and they're also quite fast, and then you put yourself in danger. Like, there's enough stories that you can think of that really stay away from putting yourself in those situations. So if you don't need to leave home, stay at home, save. You want to buy a car. The first thing that you might want to do is to save up enough so that you can be able to buy a nice car that can take you from point A to point B. You don't need to, because you're earning 5,000, now you're earning 10,000, now you must buy the Mercedes-Benz, the brand new Mercedes-Benz. Because then, again, you are not in a place where you are able to make the sound decisions about what can I save, because now all that money is now going to pay for the installment. So I think it takes planning, and I think it requires a lot of us to be more open about the financial struggles that we have, and for those that have overcome them, how have you overcome it? And make it easy for people to relate. So for me, because of budgeting, there were times where we would sit and we would be calculating, like, okay, we need about 3,000 rands to make the month work for whatever reason, because of this and this. After you've cut everything, you're like, okay, there's nothing left to cut. And then you just sit there and you're like, I believe in God. I'm a person of faith. So I can go back to God and say, God, hey,
I did my best.
this is where we are. And you see, so how do you then celebrate the miracle if you don't even know what you're asking for? Because God says He will give you what you need.
Exactly.
Not necessarily what you want, but what you need, He will, all your needs I will take care of. So if I'm saying to you, I'm like, to make the month, I've done everything, I still have 3,000 to close. Then you will find a solution. A solution comes, somebody helps, somebody comes. I mean, in this particular example I'm giving you, somebody came and said, oh, by the way, there's 3,000 when I put in your account.
Praise be
It's
to
not
God.
It's not God who put it, it's me. He was just joking. And it was exactly the amount that we needed.
Yeah.
And that person has never given us money ever again. It was just one time, which is what was a point where we were in a bind. How do you do that if you are just stepping in the air, right? You're like, I don't know how much I need. And then you get to the end of the month, then you're making the wrong decisions of canceling direct debits. There's this behavior of, it's December, let me cancel my direct debit.
December.
It's not you canceling it, you're just kicking it down the road, right? Because it's still
it's
gonna
gonna
be
catch
there.
up with you.
Yeah, unless you have a solution and you know there's a big windfall that is coming the following month. But I would say budget, and it doesn't need to be complicated. Simple. Make it a simple, what am I spending on food, and stick to that. What am I spending on entertainment, and stick to that. Once that is done, make sure you don't go over. What am I spending on clothing, stick to that. And then the next month where you know you need something else, you can then make a call and say, actually I can maybe not do any entertainment this month because I need to do something else. So you then reallocate that to something that you think is important. Without the visibility of what you're spending on, you're not going to be able to do that.
I love that. So we're basically not saying that people shouldn't have fun. You can spoil yourself every now and then, but like ungaspoila uyozithengele ice cream like a KFC, guys. You don't have to go overboard. Because if you do like what she's talking about, the financial planning, and you budget correctly and you stick to it, eventually you get to a point where you can actually afford to spoil yourself properly. Like go for movies, a solo date, or if you are married like her, like hello marriage goals over here, you can get to just be with your spouse or be with your partner and have a great time nicely. So talking about, you mentioned basically recovering, and I want to touch on how did COVID affect the Vodacom business, and how did you recover? Because you spoke about, you also mentioned that it has to be relatable. So I feel like a lot of people, you obviously have a lot of customers who really love the brand. How did Vodacom recover from COVID? How did it maintain its business during the COVID period and after? And now how is it doing in terms of trying to recover and gain back its momentum?
I think, so part of one of the things that we did very well is you understand as a business that your customer is really how we are alive is because of our customers. And with the stress that COVID brought, people lost jobs, people, unfortunately died. Distress came to a lot of people. And one of the very things that we did, our CEO was very clear, was we need to be able to go back to our customers and understand how do we support them. By that we meant where you've got a bill, we gave people breaks in terms of the same way what banks did, where they would give you a mortgage break for you who needs it. So we needed to create a safe environment for a customer to call and say, listen, I'm not going to be able to pay my bill. Can we have a conversation of how do I structure this bill? I don't want to be cut off, because that's the worst time to be cut off. So we were very, very strict on making sure that our customers, and that's how you keep your customers, because now when they're coming out of that situation, they know who was there for them. They know who didn't stress them, because imagine how horrible it would be for you to be under lockdown and then Vodacom comes and says, sorry, you owe me money, but actually I can't go to work because of all this lockdown. I don't get paid. We were very clear that we will make sure that our customers know that they come first, and we supported them through the journey. There were some that will call, we had payment plans. There were some that will call and say, can we pause? Whatever we needed to do based on each individual request, we were able to do and support. And therefore, a customer will easily stay with you, and these are customers that have been loyal to Vodacom for the 30 years that we've been around. Well, at the time it was like 26 years that we were around. So that's one of the things that we did, and also we made sure that we supported in terms of the different structures that we put in place for what we were going into market with. How was it supported? But I think most of what we were doing was very much just being supportive in terms of how do we make it easy for employers to still have their employees at home. So we came up with new products like your APN, where you are able to have as many people connecting from home. Some of them, they needed us to help set up their employees' homes with fiber. We were there to support that. So we literally had to think differently and be available to say whatever is needed, what can we do? What can we actually help a Standard Bank with to make sure that they still keep their employees working from home? What are the products that we can put in place? Our Vodacom business was able to do that in terms of quite nicely, and that also then helped us stay afloat because we were all faced with all the same issues. So that's really what we were able to do.
How strict then did you have to be during that time, knowing that Vodacom is trying to, reach out to the people and its customers and do this, but also you need to be very thoughtful and intentional about how much you are spending in doing these projects. Yes, you are trying to do something good for the people. You could want to do something good, but then it doesn't really make financial sense sometimes when you look at it. How was that for you as the person who's in charge of the?
No, I think in terms of so every decision that is made, we make it as a collective, right? We would sit, what are the ideas, and also you saw sometimes it's not even about how much you're spending, it's about the intention and your intent of saying, I'm here, customer. So you would it's not every customer that came. So as much as we made those decisions, we were fortunate enough to not have to be making decisions like, how much is it costing us? Because we came out and say, this is what we are willing to do, this is what we're willing to support you. The few that came, it was still enough for us to be able to do it without breaking the bank, without feeling the pain. But also, even if we felt the pain, we could tell, remember the story that I said I tell? We could tell the stories and say, listen, my bad debt is looking the way it's looking at the moment because of XYZ. Nobody, no investor, nobody's going to look at you and reprimand you for that because they know it is a global phenomenon. It was a pandemic, right? So they understand, they just want to understand, okay, so what are you guys doing? So it was very much more about how are we supporting customers, how are we supporting our employees. It was a very different time where you can't be thinking, you can't be a penny pincher. How do we in our foundation still continue to support and do more to support the schools? I mean, the schools of learning, the e-schools of learning, we had to do more because now kids needed to go to study. How do they study without the internet? How do they study without being able to go to Teams? Some of the private schools were able to quickly just step into that quite easily. But a lot of our schools that we support in the foundation were not able to do that by themselves without us coming in. So one of the big things that we did that we supported us with Vodafone is as part of the COVID piece. I don't know if you know, there was a story about where do you store the vaccines. So Vodacom actually donated over 5 million euros towards cold storage facilities in DRC, Tanzania. I can't remember. Kenya, I think we did as well. Lesotho, we did, and South Africa. So that was a big project that we actually, can you see that's spending money? Yeah, it's not small money. Yeah. So how do we, and those were the things that were important for us. What do we do in ways that matter? One of our businesses, which is Mezzanine, if you remember, there was a tracking app where you would be able to do a tracing, COVID tracing, where you find out where you were. So they'll tell you that Princess, you were with Princess on this particular day, Princess has tested positive. I don't know if you know, there was an app, that government app. Yes. One of our subsidiaries, Mezzanine, built that app for the government to be able to use. So contact tracing, they used to call it that. That's what they built, to be able to, then you used to get those messages like, oh gosh, you had an exposure. They didn't say, they just said you had an exposure. You're thinking, where was I? So those are the things that we were actively saying as Vodacom, we are here connecting everybody for good. this is an opportunity for us to continue to do that and be present for our communities. Because we knew that if our communities are healthy, then we will still be able to get back to healthy profits when the time comes.
But also I believe that it is advertising for the business. So as much as you're helping the people, as you said, they will remember who was there for them. And
Correct.
even someone else who was using the competition will now be like, let me go over there because they take care of their people.
Correct.
So that's
Because also people, the customers will talk about it and says,
mouth.
no, I don't have a problem. I was able to organize how I was going to structure my bills. I was able to call them and ask them to change my tariff even though I was mid contract. So all those things, people listen and say, oh, okay, you could do that. So then next time you realize, oh, more people are coming to Vodacom because you have planted seeds that really speak to how you are taking care of the communities that we serve.
Something else that I want to talk to you about quickly is the issue of black tax. And for maybe a young person right now who recently got a job, is doing quite well, maybe they've been working for like a few months or a year, and they are saying, Suzuki, I feel so much strain because I feel like black tax is holding me back from reaching my goals, like getting myself a house or getting myself a car, or just being able to set myself up first before I can be able to take care of everyone, because now it's that mentality, unfortunately mentality as lalin, but that mentality yoba, now you have a job but you're not taking care of us, like maybe you were raised by udatoba or type of a thing, so you are ungrateful because you are not giving anything back home where you were brought up. How do we address that? Like how does the person address that while trying to be financially stable?
Yeah, I think for me what becomes problematic is probably this first thing is this black tax. Really, it is not, like, I don't even know where it was coined from. For us as black people, how we were raised in a community setup that says we support one another. No matter what, and the support you give is based on what you are able to do. The minute we call it black tax is where it almost feels like you are saying, oh, now I'm fine. Village, community,
Bye-bye.
You helped me. Now it's my turn where I can help whichever way I know how. Now I can't do it. Now it's like a problem. So I'll give an example. I was raised by a single mother. I never went to bed hungry. I did not grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. But one thing for sure, I never went to bed hungry. But I saw my mom planting in her garden everything that you can think of: potato, carrots, onions, and whatever. And she would go to her garden, take stuff, and cook up a storm. But one thing that I saw her do very well was she shared. She would, every time there's a harvest, she would collect everything. I mean, what's the point of having a bunch of potatoes that are gonna rot? She will take what she has. The point is about what do you have, and I'll get back there. She will take what she has and she will share. So we'll collect potatoes, is it carrots, is it whatever, and we will take it to our neighbors. She could have called that black tax, right? But it wasn't. If somebody is in distress, they come to my house, we will eat the same thing. Whatever it is that she's cooking, today, gamazambane with rice and carrots, there's no meat. We are all in this together. It's what you can do. So what then, bringing back to the question you're saying, I've just started, I am still trying to build myself. What can you do? Nobody's asking you to take all your money and give it, to send it home. If I'm saying my mom was able to share from what she could, it means she didn't take all of it.
Yeah.
She didn't take 80% of it and give it away and leave herself with 20. She took, and whatever she could, she was sharing with people. So the first thing that we need to do is to be honest with ourselves and be honest with the people that we are supporting. We sometimes want to live and pretend we have this great, I'm doing well. The I'm doing well says, what do you need? What December when you go home? What do you need? I can do it. It sets expectations with people. Once you don't set an expectation, I get 5,000 rands. After everything that I've done, I'm going to make sure that 500 rands goes home. That's 10%. That's already something substantial. It's 5,000, I'm giving 500. if it gets to a point where I'm like, even that 500 is tight for whatever reason, inflation, petrol, I should be able to go back home and say, guys, my 5,000 hasn't changed. However, my petrol has gone up. I'm only able to do 300. And don't put pressure on yourself that I must. The problem is that we're not honest with ourselves and with the people that we're supporting. There is no parent. I know my mom. My mom would never expect me, no matter what, to send her money because I was sending her money every month. If things change and I call her and I say, Mom, unfortunately, whatever I was sending you, I'm not able to do for now. Can you please hold off? Well, when things change, I'll be back. But for now, why are we not having those conversations? If I know that I'm saving for a car, and at home they were fine before I started working, whatever they were doing.
Why can't they continue?
Have the conversations and say, literally, I will not be able to do anything for the next year. I am earning, yes, but give me time. This is what I'm trying to do. Where you can, for December, you're able to put together something and you take it home. Let's have the right conversations with nobody is sitting there waiting, thinking, I want to see you. Nobody is, but we're putting this pressure on ourselves because first you set an expectation that actually you yourself shouldn't have set. There's a joke that says, I'm not married in the Xhosa, I'm not married to a Xhosa person, but I know how we are in terms of, yeah. So I said, if I was married, somebody said, when you get married and you go for the first time to your husband's house, these guys are used to waking up at 8 and 9 and having coffee. And when you come and you wake up at 5 and start making coffee so that when they wake up, they're like, oh my God, guess what? You've set an expectation. So now you must continue doing this 5 a.m. because now you've made them realize that, we could get, nobody said you should wake up at 5 o'clock.
And now when you're tired, it's going to seem like, but
you started, so don't start things that you are not going to be able to. What Charles is, must live according to your means, have conversations. And if it's your family, have conversations with your family and say, I know you're expecting, I'm just starting. And people are not unreasonable. They were fine before you started working. Yeah. It's not like they were waiting, they're like, finally when she works, now I'm gonna, no, they're gonna continue the way they were until you get to a point where you're like, okay, I can do a bit more. So that 500 rands, now if salary has gone to 10, I can actually do 1,000. Or it has gone to 20, I can do 3,000, 4,000. It's you who sets the expectations. But let's move away from this it's a black tax. It is not a tax, it is you continuing what was done because you are where you are today because somebody else was supporting you, was supporting your family. So they didn't call it black tax then. It was just part of how we did things as a community. So we are all in Joburg and happy. Now we're calling this black tax. I have a problem with that word. It's not black tax, it's us doing and continuing to do what we grew up doing. We grew up supporting each other and therefore we support each other the best way we know how. And some of that support comes through, I'm gonna buy a pair of shoes and then, I know Sister Yam could be appreciative of that. That's not black tax. That's you just deciding to do something nice for your family because there was a time where you were growing up. Yeah. The same thing happened.
Someone was there.
You understand? And they didn't think it was black tax. They just said, this is what I can do. Therefore, I'm going to be able to support them all.
Yeah. I ask this question because when I have conversations with people in my age group, it comes up a lot and it's the question of, so I'm a pastor's child. So it's that question of, which is tithe in English. Because I take out tithe in the money that I receive from home because I'm still dependent on my parents. I take out tithe, then I still do the little that I can for my siblings. If I see my brother needs shoes, I'll buy the shoes, or I'll rather give him to do in Dorland where you pay for 3 months. If I can't lay by if I can't pay once off. So it's that kind of thing why do you think like this? It's like an old woman is stuck inside of you. And I'm like, no. But I grew up in a setting where, especially like being a pastor's child, the church people will give. Like they will see, oh, she's short of a skirt, they will give. My family will do that. I saw my parents doing this very same thing that you are speaking about with regards to your mother. So I just wanted to hear it, or I wanted the people to hear it from someone who is in finance and obviously someone who is of color. And hopefully it will create a certain narrative or a different narrative out there as to how to approach family life and maintain your finances, basically. So I just wanted to find out then, what is the correlation between gender-based violence? Because I went to an event a couple of months back, just at the end of 2024, and you were speaking at the event with regards to gender-based violence, the correlation between gender-based violence and financial stability. And people who have partners that are working and the person is dependent on the partner financially. What is the correlation between those two things, and how can we break that cycle?
So I remember, because I gave the dream that I had, right? It was about the dream that I had where this lady was in an abusive relationship, but actually everybody was like really rooting for her to say leave. And she was like, no, who's gonna buy me a Cartier watch? I think that is the example that I gave. The honest truth is, I mean, I'm not a researcher, I'm not a psychologist or whatever, and I haven't researched it, but I do think there is a link between not having independence, financial independence, and gender-based violence, meaning staying in unhelpful situations because you don't have a means, because this person is, that in itself is abusive, financial abuse. This person has, you get married, you were working, let's give you an example. You get married, you were working, and the husband says, leave the job, I'll take care of you. You decide, let me leave the job, yes, he's going to take care of me. And then as time goes on, you soon realize that I'm depending on him for everything. And then as you're depending on him for everything, things start changing. How he treats you, how he makes you feel. But you are now stuck in the space of, but actually I don't have anything. I can't. So somebody will be abusive. It could be emotional, it could be physical, but you're staying because at the end of the day, they're going to come to you. They're going to come back and say they're sorry, and they give you the Cartier watch. Then you forget, right? And then the abuse comes again. And then you're like, it's a cycle. And then they do what they do. They're like, yeah, I'm so sorry. And then they come with another gift because they now know what keeps you. That cycle will continue until you get to a point where you recognize that it is the relationship in itself. This whole situation is not normal. So why are you staying in that situation? And the reason we stay in those situations is because this looks harder to actually leave where there's comfort. It's even worse when there's proper comfort of, I have everything that I need. I drive the Porsche or whatever it is. I have my Cartier watch. I have my designer this. It's very hard to then leave, because when you leave, you're leaving everything. Because sometimes these abusive relationships mean that this person has everything is in this person's name. So when you decide to leave, you literally are leaving.
You can't take.
If you are lucky, you're taking your clothes that you're wearing. So it's almost like a decision is made between, do I stay here but still also keeping appearances? I'm still, presence is seeing me, I'm still to do, they don't need to know what's happening at Libya. Or do I go and start over? Where do I even start? Literally from zero. And I always say, I give women who do that, or even men, abuse can go either way. I give people who can do that and actually say, enough is enough, no more. And walk away. Most of them are able to do that because of the support structure. Because in this dream of mine, we all can say whatever we want to say. We're on social media, right? We can tell you what to do, but I'm not your support structure. For you to be able to make that decision, you need a very solid support structure. Somebody who I can call, where you know I'm walking this journey and you're like, Zuki, when you're ready, I'm here for you. Zuki, when you're ready, I'm here for you. And when I come to you and say I'm ready, you're like, okay, let's go. That means that you must support me, whatever that support looks like. If it means I must come and live with you for some time while I'm building myself, that's a support structure. Or is it me going back home? That is a support structure. It takes courage. It would take the biggest courage for you to then say, I'm going to start from zero. And I'm sure there's many people that have done that, and they have stories to tell and have turned a leaf and they are successful now. And they look back and say, had I not made that decision that day to walk away, I wouldn't be here today. In fact, I could probably be dead. You get what I'm saying? But it takes change. Is so I can't remember, it was a course that I was doing where they were saying a ship going, think about a biggest ship going it's on the water and it's going this direction, and where it's supposed to go is here, but it's for some reason they've put the wrong coordinates and it's going that way. Unless somebody goes and changes the coordinates, literally punches the right coordinate, it's a slow turn, right? But the slow turn would get you here. But it takes that decision to make a change. When you don't, you're still going the wrong direction. You will never reach this destination. You're never going to reach that destination because all it took was you turning. Yes, you might lose time. The time you've lost going the wrong direction, that time is nothing compared to ending up even further away from where you were supposed to be going. So it's the little decisions that we need to make. That little change, that change you make today, 10 years down the line, could mean that you're in a different space than if you didn't make that change. That decision to say, you know what, I know that I'm taken care of here, but actually I'm not happy, and therefore I'm going to make a choice. But who are we supporting us? Who are the support structures around us? But also the people that are, and also sometimes I think because of the shame, we do not tell people that are close to us, and then we find out later like, why did you not tell me? We need to break that as well. Have your close support system. The people that are closest to you, that you call friend, they should know everything about you. I should know everything about you if I'm saying you're my closest friend, so that when things are tough, I should be able to pick it up and say, something has happened. But if you are constantly keeping up this facade that everything is fine, then I get shocked when now down the line you come, because I came to your house unannounced and I found you with a bruise. I'm like, but then what happened? Then you must come up with a story. But I'm like, but that bruise is not I fell type of bruise, right?
I hit the wall.
But it's because we want to keep up appearances. For what? How does it pay you in the end? So for me, your support structure becomes critical. And don't be afraid to make that little 1 degree turn. And that's what it was. The 1 degree turn meant that this ship is going to go to the right direction. The same thing that is probably happening in South Africa. We needed to make 1 degree turns many times, and we are not making those 1 degree turns. So therefore, we're still going in a direction that is not helpful. But once we make that 1 turn, that could change. Yes, we've lost the years, but that little change.
We can start now.
We can start now, because they say it's never too late. And it's true, as long as we are still breathing, it's not too late.
And if it means like selling veggies on the side of the road just so you gain your own financial independence and you can be able to move on from being dependent to that person, then do that. The shame
But
that
how
you're
do you
talking
do
about
it when you feel shame, you are trying to keep up appearances, you want to keep your life? You can't do that. You can't think, you won't think that way. Because you are still thinking, where I am now, it's okay. It's okay because now you start convincing yourself that, but out of 5 days, maybe out of 7 days, out of a week, out of a month, maybe it's twice, 3 times. But then I've got the rest of the days when I'm happy. And then even worse when then children come into play, because then now you're exposing them into something that is not healthy, it's not unhelpful, and it makes it even harder to make the decision to leave. And the signs are normally quite early on, but we always just look and we're like, no, maybe I misunderstood. And then by the time it hits, you have done a lot of damage either to your relationships, your friendships. Now you're only stuck with this person. And that's how abusers work. They separate you, they pull you, stop working. You listen, I give you a push. Stop working, babes. I don't think you need this. And then your family, you've seen less and less and less of them. Your best friend, you've seen less and less and less of them. Before you know it, before they start their piece of work, that I know, because I've researched, that I've read, I've watched, it almost happened to me many years ago. Before they start doing the stuff that they want to do, emotional, start small. They want to make sure that they have gotten rid of the people that can speak into you, that can bring sense into you. Somehow you start being very isolated. You're spending a lot more time with this person than you spend with everybody else that was speaking to you. So we fall away, and we don't want to disturb your harmony. We fall away. Then when it happens, again, but when it happens, the question is, do you trust those relationships, those people enough to then be able to go back that 1 degree turn, to come back and say, hey, I'm sorry, my friend. I know I haven't been talking to you, but this is what's happening. We don't. You now are stuck, because now you're thinking the shame. You're thinking, but Basotini, I wasn't talking to them. I cut them out of my life. Why are they gonna allow me back? People are not mean. People are not horrible. Nobody's gonna say because we are bad and then say no, sorry, I'm not your friend anymore. People, we are good first before we are, So people will take you back in, but we tell ourselves the stories we tell ourselves. Princess is not gonna. No, she's not gonna. Maybe I was mean to her. She's not gonna listen to me. But I think it's not true.
Yeah, we need to have those conversations, because I think then that's how people will feel much more comfortable in speaking up. In speaking up. But thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
this was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And for all the advice. We hope that you learned a thing or two at home with regards to financial planning, even though we went into gender-based violence towards the end, which is also an important aspect of one of the biggest conversations that we need to continuously have, especially in our country, because it is one of the biggest problems that we have. So we were discussing financial planning and analysis today, and our guest was Zukiswa Phillips from Vodacom. Thank you so much for the time. I do hope that someone at home gained some valuable advice. Maybe an entrepreneur who's watching, you now know how to go about dealing with the financial aspects of your business, knowing how to budget a bit better, and I hope that we'll all make better decisions and much more informed decisions moving forward. Until next time, goodbye and God bless.
Thank you.